app's political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they are now starting their color revolution. And we knew that this was coming. And it was just a horrible thing that happened out in D.C., where two National Guardsmen, they were shot. One young woman, she passed away. The other one's still fighting for his life. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And this just shows you that the deep state players, they really don't care about America. They don't care about our armed forces. All they're trying to do is now to protect themselves. And I do believe that Trump knew that this day was going to come. And I do believe this is why, from the very beginning, he had to lay out the plan in this way. Because, again, if you're going to fight an insurgency, you need a counterinsurgency. And we could see that they're really now pushing their insurgency, which is the color revolution. And Trump has the counterinsurgency. And what is the counterinsurgency? Is the president of the United States elected by the majority of the people, which we've already seen. The president of the United States who controls the military. The president of the United States that has the people that are backing him. Now, if you look at the deep state players and you can see what they're trying to do here, number one, they're trying to divide the MAGA movement. And what's very interesting is out of Politico, they're already letting everyone know that, MAGA might be split now. They might not have the votes to win another election. And they're trying to convince everyone that MAGA is splitting. There are certain individuals that are trying to split MAGA. Remember, the counterinsurgency is made up of three parts. What is the other part that they're trying to divide right now? It is the military. Think about how the seditious six came out and told the military, do not obey the commands of the commander-in-chief. Now, once again, he is never given an illegal order. He follows the Constitution. He follows the rule of law. And you could see that the deep state players, what they're trying to do is they're trying to go after the other two sides, the military and we the people. They tried going after Trump since, 2015, 2016? That has failed. So all they have left now is to try to weaken the military or divide the people, or we could even say divide the military if you really think about it. And this is how they're going to try to destroy the counterinsurgency, because they know that their color revolution will not succeed unless they destroy the counterinsurgency that President Trump has created. And he created the counterinsurgency for this moment. And that's what this is all about. So all the people out there who believe like, okay, we got the president elected, everything's all said and done. No, this is a revolution. It's the second revolution of this country. We're fighting a tyrannical government. We're fighting a tyrannical government that wants to do away with the America that we have known going way, way back. They want to do away with the Constitution. They want to get rid of your rights. They want complete and utter control. This is what they've been doing for a very long time. The tyrannical government was never here for the people. The tyrannical government was always against the people. And you could see it as clear as day now. I think Trump and the Patriots, this is what they wanted everyone to see. They wanted everyone to see that these people, they're not behind you. They're behind the criminals. They're behind the terrorists. They're behind the illegals that they've brought into this country. The fake news is behind the criminals, behind the terrorists, behind the illegals that are brought into this country. You could see it as clear as day. And you could see that they've already kicked it off. They had their operative, this Afghan, and this individual from all the research now that we see coming out. He had connections with the CIA. He worked for the deep state players. He's not a nice guy. He's a bad guy. And we can see that it's not just him, but there are many, many others. These individuals, they are the foot soldiers of the deep state players. Antifa is the foot soldiers of the deep state players. The Muslim Brotherhood are the foot soldiers of the deep state players. Now, they might have different positions. If you look at DC and you look at some of the individuals that are part of the Muslim Brotherhood who are in Congress, and if you look across the country, you could see that also. They have a different position. Are they on the streets battling people? No. So what they did was they set their army up in different areas, in political positions, Antifa, who's out on the street, and the illegals that they brought in here. And this is what they're going to use to stage the color revolution. They've done this before in other countries. They're prepared and ready to do it in this country. Remember, they overthrew the United States government in 2020. Trump, we were able to override their rigged election system in 2024. And now they know that the only way to make sure that they have complete and utter control is to have a color revolution and overthrow the government once again. And actually, the only way they could do this is to divide either the military and the people or both together. And that's exactly what they're trying to do right now. And this is why Trump has taken this path to show the people the truth. Yes, it might have taken a long time. People might have become impatient because once again, people must see this play out. Because this is how you learn. This is how you know we should never, ever allow this to happen again. What do you think the founding fathers who fought the Revolutionary War, since they fought the Revolutionary War, they knew that this could never, ever happen again. And they put certain things into place to make sure it never, ever happens again because they fought a war. The only way we can keep this country is to fight the second revolution. We have to be at ground zero here, and people have to go through it because if you don't learn, you don't understand. It's almost like a child where you say, listen, don't touch the hot stove. You're going to burn yourself. I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? It's hot. I don't get it. They touch the hot stove. They burn themselves. Guess what? They've just learned something. And it's the same thing that is happening now in this country. And as we go through this, it makes it a lot easier for people to see who the true enemy is. When you hear the fake news sticking up for the illegal and saying, hey, maybe that's why the National Guard shouldn't be, in D.C. It's almost like saying, well, maybe the police shouldn't be patrolling the streets. They wouldn't get shot. I mean, think about their logic right there. It doesn't even make sense. The reason why the National Guard was there is because, wait a minute, there were murders, there was crime, like we're seeing right now. So actually, we need more to take control of what is going on there. That's what that really means. But again, we know that this was an op. We know that they wanted to kick off the color revolution. This is why the Seditious Six came out with that video message. And yes, they delivered the message, but were they the ones who were behind the message? No, we know that is not. We know it was a different group, an unelected group that controls all these people. And we can see at this point, they've kicked everything off. And now Trump is going to go into high gear. You have to remember, what they just did is going to backfire on them. Because think about it. Trump put everything into place and he timed it perfectly. The funding for the One Big Beautiful Bill to deport people, very interesting, just so happens to happen in 2026. Think about all the people that are applying to join ICE. So now that this just happened and Trump has shut down the immigration from Afghanistan and many other places, and now he's going to be checking all the green card holders, do you think the deportation of these individuals is going to go much, much faster in 2026? Do you think the people now will be all on board with all of this? Of course they will. The timing is actually perfect. I mean, it's terrible what happened here, but we knew that the deep state players were going to do these type of things. Actually, I do believe it's going to get a lot worse because again, what are they going to do? The deep state players, they're going to fight and fight and fight. Remember, they're fighting for their lives. They know that if they do not fight, they will be put into prison. There will be military tribunals. There will be other, civilian trials. And in the end, with all the documentation that Trump and the Patriots have, they will be thrown in jail. So what are they going to do? They're going to fight back with everything they have. And we know that they're going to use riots, the color revolution. And we also know that they're probably going to still try to push war because that's the last thing they really have. What else do they have? Not much. That's it. That's what they're left with. And Trump, the Patriots, they're ready for it. And you can see the people across the world, well, they're starting to side with the individuals who are running for election that actually support what the people want. Now, we saw this in Argentina. That's why Javier Milei was elected. We saw this in El Salvador. We've seen it in many other countries. And you're going to see it in Germany. You're going to see it in UK. You're going to see it in France. You're going to see it in many, many countries. And this is what the deep state players are trying to stop. But you can see the people now, they're understanding. They're starting to realize what's really going on here. Actually, if you look at Germany, you could see the AfD party. They are now really picking up steam. And we know the deep state players, as they continually try to remove or kill, I mean, they call it a suicide, but as they kill the AfD members, you can see the AfD party is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And according to the latest INSA Build poll, fewer than half of all German voters, just 49%, now say they would never vote AfD, down from a staggering 75% only a few years ago. This is nothing short of historic breakthrough. Despite years of state-funded smear campaign, constant domestic intelligence surveillance, court cases, job dismissals, bank account closures, repeated violence against party members by leftists, globalist extremists, and even killing some of these individuals. I mean, allegedly. You could see the people now are starting to see the writing on the wall. Just like in this country, when they threw everything at Trump, people started to really see it. They did the same thing with the AfD party. And you can see that the people now are fighting back. And this is spreading worldwide. And the deep state players, they're hanging on by a thread right now. They're losing their power. They're losing the grip. So the only thing they have left is to most likely start a worldwide riot, color revolution, especially here in the United States. And if that doesn't work and they can't, take back the power that way, the only thing they have left is some type of war, nuclear war, World War III, that they're going to try to kick off. But Trump, he's trying to mitigate all this before that happens. Now, what's very interesting is that the United States did not attend the G20 in South Africa. And it looks like Trump is now saying that the South Africans will not be able to come to the meeting here in the United States. This is what he put out on Truth. The United States did not attend the G20 in South Africa because the South African government refused to acknowledge or address the horrific human rights abuses endured by the Afrikaners and other descendants of Dutch, French, and German settlers. To put it more bluntly, they're killing white people and randomly allowing their farms to be taken from them. Perhaps worst of all, the soon-to-be out-of-business New York Times and the fake news media won't even issue a word against the genocide. That's why all the liars and pretenders of the radical left media are going out of business. At the conclusion of the G20, South Africa refused to hand off the G20 presidency to a senior representative from our U.S. Embassy who attended the closing ceremony. Therefore, at my direction, South Africa will not be receiving an invitation to the 2026 G20, which will be hosted in the great city of Miami, Florida next year. South Africa has demonstrated to the world that they are not a country worthy of membership anywhere, and we're going to stop all payments and subsidies to them, effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's strange that we don't have Antifa out on the streets saying free, free, free South Africans, because once again, they said, hey, look at the genocide in Gaza. Actually, that wasn't genocide. You see, they attacked a country responded. That's called war. Here we have the leaders in South Africa actually killing their people in South Africa. That's genocide. Where's Antifa? Aren't they going to change costumes? No, we don't see them anywhere. Hey, that's very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the peace deal is moving forward, and we know the deep state players are going to be pushing back on this quite hard. And Zelensky sent an aide to talk to the U.S., and it looks like they used this individual, Andrei Yermak, to try to protect him from the corruption probe. But that didn't seem like it worked out too well because they raided Andrei's house. And it looks like Andrei decided to resign. So that is very, very interesting. So Zelensky's chief of staff, the latest, his whole place was raided. And this comes days after the $100 million bribery scandal that rocked Ukraine's energy sector. And it looks like this individual says, okay, I'm out, I'm done. So that plan that Zelensky had did not work. And I do believe Zelensky, his entire motivation right now is to protect himself from everything that he has done. And I think he's trying to use the peace deal to actually set up some type of protection for himself. And what's very interesting about all this, and we know the deep state players, they don't want a peace deal, because if they have a peace deal, this is going to be a problem for them because once again, they lose all leverage. Now, this doesn't mean there's not going to be a peace deal, but I do believe they're going to try to fight back with everything that they have to try to not have the peace deal. And what's very interesting coming out of Politico out in the EU, there was an article that says the NATO states are considering a cyber offensive against Russia because Russia has been using hybrid attacks against the NATO nations. So this is very, very interesting. And a Latvian foreign minister, Braze, told Politico that NATO must be more proactive on the cyber offensive and better coordinate their intelligence services. So they're sending a signal that they might have to take this approach. Now, this is very interesting that they're saying it's a cyber offensive. Well, it's not really a cyber offensive. They're actually attacking Russia first. And I do believe what they're trying to do is they're trying to kick off some type of cyber war. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, Putin came out and basically he is saying that either Ukraine concedes diplomatically or we will win militarily. Now, once again, Ukraine, they really don't have the manpower. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the money. They've been losing this entire time. And if Putin really wanted to go in and just take over Ukraine, he could have done this a long time ago. Whatever the fake news is saying, it's completely and utterly fake. It's been fake since the very, very beginning. And actually, if you go back to 2014, 2015, around that time period, when Ukraine made their initial offensive against Russia, Russia pushed their forces almost all the way back to Kiev. If Putin would have kept on going, he would have taken over Ukraine, but he stopped. And there's a reason for that, because he doesn't want to conquer Ukraine. And you can see that right now we have the representatives from the U.S. out in Russia. They'll be discussing the peace deal. And I do believe the EU, NATO, the deep state players, they definitely do not want peace. And I do believe this is why we are now seeing the push for a color revolution in this country. I do believe they're trying to push a distraction right now. So this way it derails the peace talks. It keeps, what happened in D.C. in the news. They're trying everything they possibly can. And before we talk about that, what I find very interesting is that we know Eric Swalwell, he's suing Bill Pulte because Bill Pulte looked at his real estate forms and said, hey, you lied on it, referred it to the DOJ. Now the DOJ is investigating Eric Swalwell, just like Letitia James and the rest. And it looks like Eric Swalwell's lawsuit against Bill Pulte has been assigned to, guess who? Judge James Boasberg. So how did he get this case? It's supposed to be random. Is Judge Boasberg just that lucky, gets all the cases, or has it been assigned to him so this way he can get Eric Swalwell off using lawfare? And you can see that the judiciary, it is corrupt. I don't think it's getting any clearer than this at this point. And this is why when people say we need arrest, we have to do it now or else, blah, 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 blah. Once again, if we cannot use the rule of law, if we don't have judges that are going to follow the rule of law, arresting people is absolutely meaningless. We must make sure we take back the system. Have we taken back the entire system? No, we haven't. Accountability comes when we take back the system. And you can see the deep state players, they don't want us taking back the system. They want to stay in control. And they know that if we, the people, get our way, which we're going to, they're screwed. It means there's going to be military trials. It means there's going to be civilian trials. They know that they have to stop this every step of the way, and they don't care if they kill Americans in the process. I mean, all you have to do is look back in time and look at the false flags that they have created over time. You could see that they don't care about the American people. If you look at the fake news, if you look at the D's, if you look at all these people, all they care about is their illegals. All they care about is the criminals and the terrorists. That's all they care about. And over Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving, we had 2 National Guard members. They were shot point blank by an Afghan national. And U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, she passed away. And she was born in 2005. She passed away in 2025. She's a true American hero. The other individual, he is in critical condition, and hopefully that he makes it out. And we'll have to see how that plays out. But Pam Bondi put this out and said, devastated. Please pray for Sarah's family. America will never forget her courage. There'll be justice for Sarah. Continue to pray for Andrew. Thank you, President Trump. The death penalty is back, and this individual should get the death penalty. Now, they did capture this individual. He's an Afghan national. He was brought into this country by the Biden administration. They stripped him down. It looks like he had a knife wound because, again, the military in D.C., they were not carrying weapons. I do believe this person, I think, used a pocket knife or something to wound this individual. And I do believe what the deep state players are trying to do is they're trying to push this color revolution, and they want the National Guard armed. They want shootouts. They're trying to build this up. And what's very interesting, they're trying to make the case that, oh, if the National Guardsmen weren't there, none of this would have happened. No. If the Afghan national wasn't brought into this country, radicalized, and instructed to kill the National Guard, none of this would have happened. Because remember, they told us that D.C. has been safe. There's nothing going on there. Well, this just proved them wrong. And what they're saying is absolutely ridiculous. It's like police patrolling the streets of a city. Oh, if the police weren't there, they wouldn't have been killed. No. If we would put criminals in jail, that wouldn't have happened. So, again, they're looking at the National Guard, not looking at the source of the problem. The source of the problem are the illegals in this country. Just like when an illegal burns an American citizen, when an illegal stabs a woman on a train. Who's doing this? Is it the woman that caused it? No, it's the illegal. They're the ones who decided, I'm going to kill, I'm going to assassinate, I'm going to rape. They're the ones who are deciding this. So the argument is not holding water right now. And you could see they were asking U.S. Attorney Pirro about this. And Storm Arai put this out and said, U.S. Attorney for D.C., U.S. Attorney Pirro explodes on a reporter for parroting the liberal talking point that a National Guard shouldn't have been in D.C. in the first place. She goes, I don't even want to talk about whether they should have been there. We ought to kiss the ground and thank God that the president said it's time to bring in more law enforcement to make sure the city that had the 4th highest homicide rate in the country, that the violence was quelled. I'm not even going to go there. Liberals have been spending the last 12 hours, even longer, trying to place the blame on Trump for bringing the National Guard to the city. Truly unbelievable how ungrateful these people are. Instead of looking at the individual who was brought into this country, who's a criminal, here illegally, his visa ran out, the green card ran out, never renewed it, and this individual decided, I don't think it was on his own, I do believe it was an op, decided to go up to these two, minding their own business, and assassinate them. Just like the individual tried to assassinate Trump. So once again, you could see that what the fake news is trying to do, they're trying to protect the deep state army. But Trump now has given the order and saying that this is an act of terror and says 500 more troops will be sent to D.C. that we will clamp down on illegal aliens. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. And ask every family to say a prayer for the two great heroes. Absolutely. Now, what's very interesting is if we go back a little bit in time to the seditious six, we can see they have been building this narrative. Viva Frey put this out and said, this is from barely 1 month ago. Understand that. Senator Slotkin, it's only a matter of time before things get worse. By my estimation, we are about 2 weeks away from a bloody incident that spirals out of control. When you understand that they are not expressing their intentions, everything takes on a whole new meaning. So think about it. She's letting you know they're taking this to the next level. We will start firing on the National Guard. We want a civil war. See, they know how to handle a civil war. They want the National Guard armed. They want a shootout. This is what they're trying to build right now. And if you look at this, you could see they've been building this narrative. Andy No put this out and said, do you remember all those leftists and Democrats who encourage migrants and their allies to arm up with firearms to target people under the control of the federal government? Snarknado put this out and says, Don Lemon for one. And yes, he had a guest on there saying that people should take up arms. So now all of a sudden they like guns. Isn't that interesting? And when you look at this individual who shot the National Guard, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, both him and his wife and his 5 children, they eventually moved into the Walton Place apartment, which is partnered with the Bellingham Housing Authority, also known as subsidizing housing. So what's very interesting about all this is that the Cretans, they sponsored this individual and his family in 2021 as part of Biden's Operation Allies Welcome program. So that's very interesting. So they sponsored him. And who's paying for all of this? They're not. It's we the people once again. Now, Data Republican, she started to look at all this and saying, okay, look what we found here. And she put out a thread and says the following. What is the International Rescue Committee? Well, this individual, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, the accused, worked for the International Rescue Committee. He is also being reported as working for the CIA, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. Given this, is the International Rescue Committee a CIA front? I'm going to do a deep dive here. As always, patience as I pull together the thread. The first thing that jumps out when analyzing the IRC is its government grants. Out of its nearly $1.5 billion, it has nearly $1 billion in grants. Their USAID grant in Afghanistan went towards accessible and quality basic education activity. Yeah, sounds like intelligence works. If I'm reading this right, I'm not sure I'm reading this. It seems like almost all of the government grants are from the U.S. This is fairly unusual for a charity NGO of this size. Often humanitarian NGOs will be co-financed by foreign governments. One of the recipients of the IRC Freedom Award is George Soros in 1993 because, of course, this was at the peak of Soros's influence with the State Department when he was advising NED on Eastern Europe strategy. Wait, Soros got the award twice, again in 2013, then Samantha Power in 2020. You can't make this stuff up. The timing of Samantha Power is interesting. If I'm inferring timelines correctly, then the awards are given within the year, not after in November of that year specifically. So Samantha Power would have been given that around November 2020 before she entered the Biden administration and having left Obama's office for 4 years. Her resume does not give a clear rationale why. On the private donation front, IRC gets major funding from Catholic charities. IRC has had to pay penalties for their misconduct in other countries. IRC's head, David Miliband, was a foreign secretary of Tony Blair, MI6, the British version of CIA, reports to the foreign secretary. This is getting more and more interesting. Their COO advised UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which used to house MI6, according to Gemini. Can't make this stuff up. Here's a letter from the IRC to Alan Dulles, the infamous CIA director. It references working with the Ford Foundation and thanks Dulles for intervening in their funding. Am I seeing awards for International Rescue Committee that do not appear to have been canceled? National Endowment for Democracy, our CIA, Quango, presented a 2005 award to IRC's then President John Richardson. He served as CEO of Radio Free Europe, Assistant Secretary of State for Education and Cultural Affairs, and was founding staff member of the U.S. Institute of Peace, as well as founding board member and chairman of NED. I've seen enough. IRC is a CIA front. So right now, we've just learned that most likely this is a CIA front. Now, Sarah Adams put this out and said, Lochinwal from the Khost province, Afghanistan, was a member of two CIA-supported units that operated under the National Directorate of Security of the former Afghan Republic. Although these units belonged to the NDS on paper, their support and direction came directly from the CIA. He served in Unit 01, a special military intelligence unit responsible for Central Zone provinces. His agency trained in 2007 took place at CIA's Eagles base near De Sabaz district of Kabul province, a few miles away from Karzai International Airport. Eagle Camp, originally built on an old brick factory site, became one of the CIA's most important counterterrorism training centers in the early 2000s. It trained the CIA's backed NDS units, including NDS 01, 02, 03, 04, NDS KPF, NDS KSF, and also housed an ammunition depot and multiple facilities for sensitive operations. So when you start to look at this, it looks like this individual was part of the CIA. So that's very interesting. OSIT Defender put this out and said, Lochinwal, the 29-year-old from Afghanistan who targeted and shot two members of the West Virginia National Guard today in D.C., didn't just serve in the Afghan army, but reportedly was a member of the Afghan National Army Commando Corps, an elite direct action force of the AFN who fought directly alongside U.S. Special Forces against the Taliban. In addition, Fox News is reporting that this individual worked with various other government entities from the United States. So we're getting clear indication that this individual is part of the CIA. And Data Republican says the ages line up well with this LinkedIn profile. If this is the same person, absolutely nobody should let go of the USAID connection. This person spent all his life working for U.S. NGOs and interned the Democrats' version of CIA. So that's very interesting. And John Radcliffe and President Trump looks like they've confirmed this, that yes, he worked for the CIA. He was part of the CIA. So most likely he has handlers. In the wake of the disastrous Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan, Radcliffe says, the Biden administration justified bringing the alleged shooter to the United States in September 2021 due to his prior work with the U.S. government, including the CIA, as a member of a partner force in Kandahar, which ended shortly following the chaotic evacuation. The individual and so many others should have never been allowed to come here, Radcliffe says. Our citizens and service members deserve far better than to endure the ongoing fallout from the Biden administration's catastrophic failures. Trump says the Afghan man who reportedly worked for the CIA for years and shot two National Guardsmen just went cuckoo. He went nuts, he says. So again, Trump is not going to say, well, by the way, he has handlers. He was directed. Remember, optics have to look pretty darn good for President Trump. He knows exactly what happened. I do believe this was an op, and he had handlers who were instructing him to do this. And remember, going all the way back to 2021, Trump predicted that it will be a mistake to take Afghan refugees. Once again, he is absolutely right. But what does this all mean? It means the deep state players are pushing the color revolution. CanCon put this out and said, this was their goal, to instigate an investigation so they can cry, look, now it's true. For those who have never researched CIA orchestrated and backed coups around the globe, you should start looking into how these things are kicked off, because this is an attempt at a color revolution. Colonel Towner and Alpha Warrior X have done a good job documenting several. We have been overwhelmingly resistant to these efforts on our homeland through the use of NGOs funding widespread protests and subsequent riots. And as President Trump cut the head off their private sector funding apparatus, USAID, NED, etc., They're becoming desperate. So they politicized the military, subverted the constitutional authority of the commander-in-chief, and injected themselves in a chain of command they are not part of. The desperate attempt to execute their plan. This is life or death for the deep state players. And again, if you're going to try to shut down the counterinsurgency, because remember, they're pushing an insurgency, color revolution, an insurrection, this is what you do. Senecal Publius explains, color revolutions. There are 3 phases to a color revolution. It's important to understand this so you can see how the actions of the Sedition 6 fit into this pattern. Phase 1, form underground opposition networks. Create strong slogans and powerful information operations as recruitment tools. Upon a certain well-coordinated signal, well-funded, well-organized mass protests spontaneously appear. The armed wing of the movement conducts carefully coordinated precision attacks on certain government infrastructure. Phase 2, discredit military, security, and law enforcement forces through information operations coordination with friendly media. Jimmy Kimmel talking to you, Comrade Kelly, strikes, civil disobedience, rioting, and sabotage. You are here. Occupy civic facilities and refuse to leave until your demands are met. Strengthen and grow highly organized logistics support network. Issue ultimatums to the government threatening violent uprising if demands are unmet. The goal is to either have the government acquiesce or engage in violent repression, in each case thereby delegitimizing itself. Phase 3, overthrow the government in a non-violent manner that is actually quite violent. Open attacks on authorities, seizure of government buildings, destruction of government symbols. Coordinate media messaging. If the government attacks, media will accuse the government of attacking peaceful protesters. If the government makes concessions, it will appear impotent because protesters will not compromise. Widespread delegitimization of the government is effective in the minds of the populace. The government either willingly cedes power or is violently removed. The once underground opposition forces leadership now sees control of the government. Now, this does work if you do not have the backing of the people. If you have the backing of the people will say, okay, we see what's going on. We see the insurgency. It is now time to release the troops. This is why we've been told for a very long time that can the military work with the National Guard? And remember, Trump has the ability to invoke the Insurrection Act because this is part of the insurgency, part of the color revolution. So once again, could Trump just do this with himself and the military without the support of the people? It would not work. This is why he's taken this path. This is why he needs to show the people every step of the way, because in the end, he needs the people looking at the true enemy. And that's what this is all about. You're looking at the true enemy, and people are seeing the fake news as the enemy of the people. And Trump has said this many, many times before. The D Party, who supports the illegals, the criminals, they are the enemy of the people. And the unelected individuals behind the scenes who are supporting the illegals, the criminals, the fake news, they are the enemy of the people. For the counterinsurgency to work, the people must see who the true enemy is. This is why we are going down this path. Because again, go back to 2020, for example. If Trump just came in with the military at the time, and be realistic about this, would the country be okay if the military marched into D.C. and removed Biden? No, the population was not there yet. Do I believe the population is where we need to be right now? Absolutely. Remember, the majority agrees with Trump. This is why we overrode their rigged election. The majority agrees in deportation. So now that you see 2 National Guard members assassinated, or attempted assassinate for one, do you think the people will be on board removing more of these people when you see more of these acts? Yes, the people will be. And you can see this is what Trump is building up to. And will people be all for deporting all these people? Yes, remember the funding is ready to go live in 2026. We have people waiting to join up. Actually, they already applied, and they're going to assist in all this. But Trump, he put 2 truths out, and he said the following. He said, "This is part of the horrendous airlift from Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands of people poured into our country totally unvetted and unchecked. We will fix it. But we will never forget what crooked Joe Biden and his thugs did to our country." Absolutely. And he goes way beyond Biden. But then Trump put this out, letting everyone know what he's about to do. "A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct and just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, census, most of which are on welfare, from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 yearly benefit for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits, etc. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey, as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and I love that he's bringing back the word retarded. It needs to be used a lot more. Tim Walz does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congressman and woman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab, and who probably came into the USA illegally, in that you are not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she is treated, when her place of origin is a decadent, backward, and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for lack of government, military, police, schools, etc. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all the millions of Biden illegal emissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive population, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure this situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. And Trump is speaking directly to the deep state players, letting the deep state players, we're going to be removing your armed forces from our country. Remember, it's infiltration from within. And think about it. He timed this absolutely perfectly because in 2026, the one big beautiful bill comes into play. The funding for deportation, hiring ICE agents comes into play. And the timing is absolutely perfect right now, which means the deep state players are going to have to fight back with everything they have. And this is why they've begun the color revolution, because they understand what is coming. But I do believe as MAGA stays together, as the armed forces remember their oath, the deep state players will try to divide. But in the end, we are stronger than that, because Trump now, with the approach that he has taken, he is showing the people of this country who the true enemy is. And the true enemy is the deep state players, the ones who have been destroying our country, the ones who want to destroy our Constitution, the ones who are backing the illegals, the ones who are backing the criminals, the fake news who are backing all of these people. And you can see that this is now going to be coming to an end. And Trump is ordering the green card review of all the people in this country. So there's going to be a huge review going on right now. A lot of people are going to be hired onto ICE, and the funding is going to come in exactly during the year that we're going to have the midterms. Isn't that amazing? Which means the deep state players, yes, they're going to fight back. They're going to try to push riots, and you can see they're already starting. But again, in the end, they don't have the control. They don't have the power. They don't have the leverage, because the path that we're going down is on purpose. It's to show the people who the true enemy is. And as they commit more and more of these atrocities, and as they try to assassinate the people of this country, the people wake up. The people see. And if the people see the true enemy, there's no escape then, which means the counterinsurgency stays strong. And it will stay strong, because the deep state, they're desperate. They're panicking. And what happens when you panic? You do stupid things. And that's exactly what they're doing. So in the end, we will win. This is all part of the plan. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and it's supposed to be prepared.